Welcome back, Thrivers, to another guest episode of the Thriving Equine Professional. So, as you all know, I love to stalk people on LinkedIn, especially, and find other fantastic equine industry professionals to share their stories with each of you so that you can be inspired and empowered and really kind of get the chance to find out all that goes on in the equine industry that we don't always know are actual careers and opportunities for us as we kind of grow through our early career and make our transition from student to professional and those kinds of things. So our guest today, Danielle Aamodt, is one of the people that I just found on LinkedIn and could not help but say, I need to be connected with you. I need to know more about who you are and what you do. So Danielle, you are an equine industry consultant. You are a coach. You are a equine and farm insurance agent. You are a Mustang advocate, and now the director of operations with the Mustang Heritage Foundation. I am so excited to unpack your story, share you with our guests, and get to know you a little bit better. So welcome to the Thriving Equine Professional podcast.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here and to get to chat with you today.
Yes. And Danielle, you and I realized, pretty quickly that we don't really know each other and we don't live very far from one another, right? So, from Paris, Kentucky, we all claim this central Kentucky kind of horse place as home. So
yeah.
Let's unpack this really cool story that you have and all the work that you are doing in our industry. You grew up, I think, as I read, you were not from a horse family, but you
Correct.
sat on a horse somewhere around the age of 6 and you've never gotten off of them. Is that right?
Well, I do have to say, I guess through my high school years, I kind of went into more of a theater world for a little while, but generally, yes. I mean, when we were kids, I grew up in a family of six
Oh,
kids.
wow.
So my mom was just trying to find things for us to do, piano lessons, dance lessons, riding lessons. And so as a 6-year-old, I got to take one of those riding lessons. And my mom had no idea what she was doing around horses, but she helped us tack up and took us there and,
Right.
got us into it. But all of my other siblings just kind of did that as a quick phase. And
Okay.
it stuck for me. Yeah.
And here you are, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The phase continues. The phase became your passion and your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you then went to Centenary College in New Jersey, where you got your degree in equine studies. Tell us a little bit about making that choice and, what that meant for you.
Yeah, actually, I began talking about, theater. I actually began college at University of the Arts in downtown Philadelphia. So
Wow.
I went and did 2 years there studying to be a director for theater. And I loved the program. It was great, but I just couldn't get rid of that itch to be around horses. And I started to realize, so I found a barn, started getting work in a barn as like my part-time college job. And
Right.
then I started realizing I was scheduling my college classes around the barn and being able to get around horses more. And I went, okay, Danielle. So like maybe we need to think about this. So then I ended up switching to Centenary. And I actually did, because I was 2 years into college at that point, I did go look at a few colleges in the area. I really wanted, I made a very conscious choice about which school I went to, and I wanted it to be one that would help catapult me into the industry and get me a good foothold in the industry. So Centenary had all of that available, and I loved the professors there, loved my experience there, and it was very hunter jumper based school, and I was more of a dressage rider, or trying to be a dressage rider. But still, it was a great, hub in New Jersey. It's surrounded by the industry with real professionals teaching there and so on. So I made the
Yeah.
decision, and just from there on out, I was locked in.
You were all in that.
Yeah.
I mean, what a unique story. And again, this is, so much inspiration for young people today to understand we don't always know what we want to do. And,
Oh, absolutely.
so you just continue kind of pursuing and asking yourself questions about, what lights a fire in your soul and, what provides you with meaning and fulfillment, and, like, keep working at something, because when you're working at something, you will continue to find those doors that, provide these amazing opportunities.
That is, I can't preach that exact thing enough.
Yeah.
Because I myself, I feel like I've just gone to the new level of that right now, right? Like all through my 20s, I kind of was seeking. And so what I'll tell people is say yes to everything in your 20s. Just like, especially if you're new to the industry or trying to get in, say yes to everything. Like I went and volunteered for a horse show photographer one day, and because I thought I want to be a horse show photographer because I love cameras and photography and so on. So I went and did that for a day and realized, oh man, but the lifestyle is not really what I wanted. And so then I went and took a week-long course in equine massage, and I went, that's what I want to do. And all of those pieces are part of who I am now, and all of those experiences are part of who I am now. But I had to go kind of try them out to know if that was really the path I want. Because you can be interested in something, but not want the lifestyle of it.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it until you're in it sometimes.
Right.
Like, oh, being a horse show photographer means you're traveling from show to show to show. You're living in a trailer, like you're sitting behind a computer all night long, sitting at a show ring all day long. And that's wonderful for some people. But I
Yeah.
realized, oh no, wait, that's not it for me. But yeah, I just said yes to everything in my 20s. If that meant picking up and moving to a new state to try a new job, I went and did
Right.
it. Like
That's one of my favorite pieces of advice, right? If it me like early on, if we'll make a couple moves, oh my gosh, I think we learn so much. So tell us
yeah.
more about that, picking up and
Yeah.
moving.
Well, I don't think that's for everyone. I don't think it's easy for everyone, I'll say. I
Yeah.
grew up as an army brat, so we moved every 4 years when I was a kid. And it was horrible when I was a kid, but at the same time, it really made me as an adult not afraid to just go, yeah, I'll move to Pennsylvania. I'll move to, Florida. Let's go.
Yeah.
So, let's see. I went to New Jersey for school, and then I actually graduated in 2010, which was a horrible time. It was the recession, if you guys
Yes.
remember that. I'm going to age myself a little bit here, but yeah, I graduated during the recession. I remember it was all over the news, like no one's going to get jobs, you can't find work and so on. And I guess in some way it was really good to be working in a niche industry. But I did find a job in Virginia, and I went and worked with Shire horses for a little while there. So I worked with Shire horses, worked with minis, went to Wellington and did a season with the Hunter Jumpers as a groom. I just was like, let's go. Yes, let's.
Yeah.
So I went and experienced jobs all over the place and got to see so many different kinds of horses, different disciplines, different barns and how they run. I think a lot of that really like became the foundation of who I am, and that I am willing to explore new things and learn new things. I'm actually glad that I wasn't raised in the industry where it was like, this was my one barn and that's where you are and that's where you stay.
Right.
Not that that's not wonderful for people in a different way, but I like that I had to go seek it out,
Yes.
because I had to go find opportunities wherever I could. And I learned, like, I have a much broader base and diverse background, I think, than your average, horse girl.
Right. And the connections, right? Like, so my favorite part is the people. And I love that, like, you've done these moves, you've traveled around, you've been a part of different segments of our industry. And so the connections that come from that, I think that, and I'm sure we'll come back to that as we step into some of what you do today, but
Yeah.
not to go too fast. But then I don't think it was too long after that, right? You had a few of these roles. You decided to go back and get your MBA. Was that kind
Yeah.
of the next progression for you? Tell us kind of how you made that decision and why.
Yeah, that was a very purposeful decision again on my part. I have had conversations with people that are like, I think I want to get my MBA. And I'm like, well, like, but why? So at the time I was a groom, and at the time I was like, okay, what's my next step? And I started looking into vet tech schools. I actually thought maybe I wanted to get into the veterinary world on the tech side. And I almost applied to some actually. So I was really ready to go down that road. But then I thought, wait a second, let me look at industry jobs that are out there and look at the people who have them and what education they got.
Yeah.
So that is actually how I decided to get my MBA. And it was kind of an interesting exploration. I actually had to like look up in books and search online about, and LinkedIn didn't have quite as much equine industry jobs on it. It's definitely there
Yes.
now, but like I wouldn't say it was as broad then. So I really had to like research what jobs are out there, which jobs interest me, and what education do those people have that are currently like in those jobs. So that's why I decided to get my MBA, as I saw more and more people with the jobs that I was like, ooh, that's a cool job, I want to do that.
Right.
And I didn't even have to pinpoint one. It was just like, let me look at several of them and get an idea. And several people in the jobs that I thought were really cool had some kind of business degree or background.
Awesome advice. And I always will stop on that because, and many of my listeners know this, that my encouragement of us to find people who are 5 and 10 years at least ahead of us doing things that we are interested in doing or working for organizations that we are interested in knowing more about. Find
Yeah.
those people and connect with them. Look at their education like you've done and say, what do I need to be the best version of me moving forward towards some of these things that I want to do? And so I will encourage that from a connection perspective. I love that advice. And then second to that, that I just really heard you saying the importance of business skills. And I'm not sure we're talking enough about that for our young people that are especially pursuing equine studies in some form or fashion as an undergraduate. I want to want them to continue to hear from those of us that are in the industry. We want you to have business experience. We are going to encourage you that your path will be a little simpler for you moving forward if you will, make sure that you're incorporating business skills.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I would say, and this is not even my realm, but I would say that the marketing side of the industry is exploding right now with jobs. And
Yes.
and you actually have to have real marketing knowledge and education and experience, not just horses. So
Yes.
if you know both, you're golden, but yeah, you do have to have kind of some non-equestrian even education or experience, and that doesn't mean an equestrian school or equestrian degree can't get that for you, because
Right.
I think a lot of equestrian degrees are actually making focuses that have a little bit more of that foundation, whether it's
Yeah.
business or veterinary or therapies. The therapy world is also growing too.
I mean, such great advice. Listeners hear this. And, that's an insider insight right there. The marketing, digital and content creation and media, marketing, really hot right now. So I
Yeah.
think that's, something to put in the back of the heads of some of our young people who don't know exactly what they want to do. But to your point, if you've got a marketing degree with some formal marketing training as a background and you speak horse, you can write your ticket right now.
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. And you don't have to have the degree in horses unless, like, from in my experience, I didn't grow up on a farm, so I wanted that formal education about the equine industry specifically and about horses. So I felt like I needed that, whereas other people, if they grew up in it or they have that experience, maybe they could just go into some kind of other degree, whether it's marketing or business or whatever the interests they have, because they already have that equestrian foundation. So
Right.
I needed that on a more formal side. So I went and got the undergrad in equine, and I'm glad I did. It was what
Yeah.
I needed. But I
Yeah.
think the key is that people need to not just let someone else rubber stamp their path, right? Like you need to
Say it
figure
louder for the ones in the back. This is
you
your
have to figure
journey.
your own. Like, what do I want? What does it take to get there? And that, that will change 4 or 5 times throughout a career. I
Yeah.
can promise. Like,
Yes.
I know that, there was some point where this is the direction I'm going. Oh, now, no, now I'm going this way. Wait, hang
Yeah.
on, now I'm going this way. And I've loved all of it. I mean, it's brought me to where I am now, so it's
Right.
all good.
I
But
agree. I've had at least 4 dream jobs, Danielle,
yeah,
like
yeah.
and that's okay. So let's celebrate that.
Yeah, exactly. It's different phases of life, different chapters of life. And yeah, you have to really forge your own education for that path
Yes.
and never stop learning either. I mean, even though I figured out to get my MBA, years ago now, I was, well, one of the jobs I just had recently that I dropped was teaching at Post University with their equine program.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people in that program are adult learners that are going back to get an equine degree or something of that sort. And I told them all the time, all the students that I taught, I'm like, it's great that you're doing this now. Like, don't, as some people go, oh, well, I'm in my 50s and just starting. I'm like, that doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
you can do so much with this no matter when you're starting to like keep learning, keep seeking, keep finding the path that will work for you and don't ever stop. If it's necessary for what you want to do, go learn it.
Yes. Oh, okay. That's going to get repeated right there. That's like the best advice you could actually provide for any of our listeners, for me included. It is such a reminder. Just keep learning, keep doing, and
Mm,
keep learning. There's so much empowerment and fulfillment that comes with that. And I
yeah.
think in today's world, Danielle, that we are in a place where we're going to continue to see more and more of exactly what you are talking about and what you represent. More of creating the career that is ours and ours alone. It is
Mm,
not structured in a way that is a traditionally structured job. So I think at the same time that you were getting your MBA, which is hard enough in it and of itself, you became an equine and farm insurance agent. So
yes.
that's the tangible job in here that I do want to pick out. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how you still have that as part of your role.
Yep. Yeah. So I think it's been 10 years now, actually. I started out in an agency first. So actually working in-house with an agency. That was the fastest way to learn all of the processes accurately. So, because people can become field agents for different agencies without having worked in an equine insurance office. A lot of times they'll just find someone who's in the industry, has a lot of good connections, and they'll teach them the basics and then and that's what I do now is I'm a field agent now. So you can be a field agent without having worked in an office, but I started in the office and I'm glad I did because I got that education, that experience. I ended up taking over all of the incoming sales. So all the incoming horse mortality and medical policies and also equine liability policies and farms. And having all of that experience was great. It not only like I had a lot of the industry experience already, but you actually learn a lot through working in insurance or really any part of the industry, I guess. But I learned a lot from that also, like insuring people's horses and insuring their farms, insuring their liability. You learn about all the different things that are out there.
Yes.
Um, and it is all over the map. There are, not only so many different disciplines and breeds and pockets of this industry that exist, which by the way, all have some kind of jobs available.
Right?
But they're all a little different. And in some ways, even though it's a small world, our industry is very segmented in some ways. Like the different disciplines and different areas of the industry don't always connect because they have their own, conferences, their own professional pathways, their
Yeah.
own schools, their own everything. And a lot of them don't cross over that much.
Yep.
So anyway, I got to see a lot of that as the insurance agent, kind of learning from the customers and clients that would come in, learning about what they did, what they had, what they were operating with at home. And yeah, so 10 years later, still a field agent because it was never something I ever wanted to drop, but it also wasn't the thing that was like lighting my fire. So
Okay.
I was like, all right, I need to find the thing that lights my fire, but I can still do that over here on the side.
Right.
Um, and I think a lot of equine insurance agents do that. So, I
Okay.
mean, we're in the age of side gigs right now, right? So
Yes. The gig economy is alive and thriving.
Yes. So this is definitely a profession that works as a side gig, especially because I work through, so I'm a field agent for Marshall and Sterling, and they have several offices, but I work with the liaisons in the office, and they're fabulous. So they do a lot of the support, we kind of collaborate together with the clients, and then they get the work done. So if you work with a great agency and a great office that will help support you, it's
Yeah.
definitely a fabulous side gig to have. Yeah.
That's awesome. So yes, there's another example of, an equine industry career, whether it's a side or full time. And I also, when I think about insurance and the job opportunities available there, I also think about appraisers and some of those
Yes.
ancillary
Adjusters.
roles, adjusters.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So yes, those roles are out here, and many of our young people aren't hearing about them. So they
Yeah.
don't know that that might be something they're interested in. So,
Right. And I would say the field agent option is probably more of that freelance option in the industry, but all of the office jobs, whether it's with a company directly as an adjuster with a claims firm or working in an agency, those are really solid jobs.
yes,
You'll have your kind of typical Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So if you want that lifestyle and you want that stability,
right.
those jobs are there. And as far as I know, equine adjusting is kind of a very specific specialty. So if someone gets into that, they will always have work.
Right.
And because you have to know the industry, you have to know how to read policies, and there is a specific license for it too. So, once you get all those, like you said, the education and the experience and the license lined up, once you get all of that lined up for your career, you're set.
Yeah.
So it's about forging your own path, right? Like building
Right.
these are the things I need.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I had to get a license to be an insurance agent to sell, and so I maintain that on my own. And again, it's not something that most people know to go seek out or
Yes.
figure out how to do, or or go
Right.
get. If you
But you
have
can help.
support too, yeah,
Yeah.
basically ask another professional, they'll help
Right.
you.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's the
yeah,
power of these connections, right? That's what we should be doing, is celebrating and championing one another to help, open these opportunities up for an entire generation who has interest in horses. Let's keep them in this industry, right? Like,
yeah,
we
yeah.
want them. We want them. So let's get into Danielle, the Mustang advocate, and this brand new role. You are the director of operations for the Mustang Heritage Foundation now. So I get so excited just to say that. So tell us more.
Yeah, so this is my new era I'm coming into right now, actually. But what's so fun for me is that, so I'll go back because since you're talking about careers and jobs, anyone who's out there job searching, do not get stuck in the listings. Don't
Yeah.
get stuck there at all. That is my biggest piece of advice for job searching, because that's not really where you're going to find the greatest success in an actual finding a job. So with the Mustang Heritage Foundation, I became interested in Mustangs. I mean, gosh. So I have a deep interest in horse herds and horse herd behavior, and I study that like for fun on my own, right? So that's like a whole thing that has always been a part of who I am. I've also loved feral animals my whole life. Like I'm the girl who's getting the feral cats to, all of a
Yep.
sudden move into my house, and finding that street dog and making him the best barn dog that ever was. So I've always been connected to feral animals. I've always loved that, horse herds and herd behavior. All of that kind of made me seek out. Well, I ended up actually, side story, ended up purchasing a Mustang from somebody on like a total impulse. Like, like I was scrolling on Facebook and saw this Mustang from somebody I knew, and I was like, oh my gosh, I must have her, because I had met other Mustangs, and they really, their personalities and their behaviors were so
Yeah.
interesting because of all the stuff I love to study. I was like, ooh. So anyway, I impulse bought this Mustang. And that was only last November, so it was not that long ago. And then as I was started job searching, I, again, trying to tap into what lights my fire, I was like, okay, these are the things that interest me. These are the things that make me who I am. Like at my core, this is what I love. So I need to look into that. So then I just started looking up the organizations that were out there supporting Mustangs and Mustang work. And I just emailed the CEO. That's
Right.
what I did. And you know what's funny is that they had a job listing before I was looking. And so I missed it because it had been posted and then they had closed it down and I had never seen it. So I emailed the CEO and he goes, "Oh my gosh, we actually do have a job opening right now." And I'm like, "You're kidding me." Because all I did was email and said, "Hey, this is who I am. I'm really interested in, joining the cause.
Yeah.
If you guys ever have a future opening, let me know." That's all I did. I just sent him an email saying that. And he was like, "Actually, yes, we do." So I got an interview like a week later and, then ended up getting the job. So don't ever
Incredible.
rely on job listings is all I can say.
Yes.
Like,
You're full of such incredible advice today. I love this. And that's what sets my soul on fire, Danielle. Like, so I love these conversations because it is seeing those opportunities for young people, to
mhm.
hear from you say, I sent the CEO an email. Now,
Yeah.
we might send 100 emails and not hear back from
Yes, that's true.
99 of them,
Yeah.
right? But it
Yeah.
is truly about the connections that we make and the
Mhm.
connections that we are willing to seek out,
Yes.
because still today, over 80% of jobs are found because of a connection. They are not because
Yeah.
you have an incredible resume and cover letter. You need that.
Yeah.
Or are you an incredible interviewee? Yep, you need to be that too. You need to be all those things. But it's the connections that you have that will help you, that will proofread that resume and cover letter, that will help coach you on job interview skills, right? But it's the connections that will open the door, pick up the phone, say this girl
Mhm.
deserves an interview, right? She's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's what really makes it all happen.
Absolutely. Well, and I did have other jobs that never even got back to me. So like
Yeah.
that definitely still happens to everybody. Um,
Yes.
and I want to say I'm pretty qualified, especially for the jobs I was applying for. I was very qualified, but I didn't
Yeah.
even hear back. So that does still happen. I don't
Yeah.
want to I don't want people to think that like it's
Yes.
going to be so easy and perfect. But I think what really matters is also seeking something that you're going to care about and you're going
Yeah.
to I think that's really what they pick up on. Um,
Yes.
if you're just slapping in an application and a resume, and especially if you don't tailor it to the job that you're looking for, they're going to see that, they're going to notice that, and they're going to go, "This person doesn't really care." But if
Right.
you reach out to them and say, "I love what you do. I want to be a part of it. This is the direction I want to go in my career." That sticks out in a whole new way
Yeah.
that will really help, get those jobs.
Right.
And I think that's the only reason I got this one was I was like, I'm being purposeful about seeking this organization out. I want to be a part of it. I like what you guys are doing. I want to see if I can help and make it better too.
Yeah.
Um, and I think,
Incredible advice. Yeah, so good. Okay, so now let's get to the really exciting part for me is not that that's also exciting, but you mentioned your passion for herd behavior,
mhm.
human herd. And so let's go ahead and talk about your consulting business and what you've built. I'm going to just give a little teaser for our listeners that as I was exploring it and I took your quiz on your website, I am a Voyager.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So so now that we've got them all interested in
Yeah.
what Enso Equine is, talk to us about this passion of yours and how you continue to learn and grow and serve others.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a guardian, actually. I'll share
Okay.
that too. I'll explain all of what that means later, but I love that you took the quiz. That's great.
Yeah.
So the very short background of how I came up with this is that I guess so I have a sister who's a teacher of like 4 and 5 year old kids, and my best friend is in social work in the social work world. So other people in my life were very connected to the human experience, right? raising kids, teaching kids, helping kids. And every time I'd have these really in-depth conversations with them, I would always relate it to animals. And, my sister would say, well, this is how we're trying to teach this kid, this behavior. And I go, oh, yeah, I do that for my horse or my dog or my cat. So it's funny because I started relating more and more and more the human behaviors to the horse behaviors. And the more I started making these connections, I started seeking them out. And I went, what's crazy is that actually horses are better and they are the experts of social connection. Whereas people in our modern world, we're getting worse at it. We are actually like devolving. And it's probably some of what you're also trying to solve on this podcast, right? Is
Right.
connecting people, bringing people together. And what's great is our digital world can do that for us. Like, I mean, we're connected because of the digital world, right? We haven't met in person, but LinkedIn and Zoom now. But in general, our society is becoming a lot more disconnected because of the digital world. So I started realizing like we really need to get back to the roots of like tribal connections, building, tribal groups, whether at work or home or really all of the above, any group that you're involved in, we need to make better connections with those people at home. And I started relating it to the work that my best friend was doing in social work. And anyway, like I said, I started making these connections to horse herds and horse herd behavior and realizing that even though we are technically predators and we call them prey, socially, our brains are built very similar as horses. We have a lot of the same tools and a lot of the same exact triggers in our brain that horses do. Horses are just a little more instinctual. They're built a little more instinctual with their reactions and their behaviors, but people, because we're overthinkers and because we really get in our own heads way too much, we ignore those instincts a lot. So yeah, so because of that, we need to get back to paying attention to our instincts, paying attention to, what our brain is telling us. And that is where we can actually learn from the horses. If we follow their examples of how they build a social group and a herd, if we tried to do that a little bit more with the people in our lives, we would be happier, more connected, more productive. We actually would be a lot more successful in our work and at home and in our relationships if we were able to make those connections a little bit better. So that's what I really try to do. And what I take a very studied approach, but I simplify it with the fun of, comparing it to horses, because when we compare it to horses, all of us horse people, we can read them, we understand them. We're actually a little more open to learning when it's about a horse.
Yes.
When you start talking about people and brain waves and behaviors and human beings, we're like, shut down. So I try to make it a little more fun and relate it to horse relationships, because I have rarely seen when horses are put together, as long as resources and space are all appropriate. If you put horses together in some kind of a herd situation, they may have some kinks to work out in the beginning, but generally speaking, they will always come to a happy balance.
Yes.
And whether that means these two horses keep bigger distance or not, it's, maybe the solution, but they will always find a happy balance where that herd can function together. And that's because instinctually it's based on survival, right?
Yes.
So that's the most base level, is survival, but then there's also connection, development. They have other needs that they want met, belonging. They want all of those needs met by the herd, and generally speaking, horse herds will do that for themselves and each other.
Right.
Whereas people, we are a little more prone to like, well, I'm just going to sit here and scroll on my phone or turn on Netflix, and I am totally a proponent of this myself. So
Yes.
I'm not like preaching. We are so much more prone to disconnecting from each other and isolating ourselves rather than reaching out to other people. So horses know that they need each other. We forget that we need.
Oh, this is so good. Like, we talked about that this could be a podcast episode all on its own. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's completely fascinating. And it also, I think it's me so excited because you're right. I am so focused on creating connection in this disconnected world that we live in. And you're right, we're more connected from a technology perspective than we've ever been before, but we continue to see that gap of disconnection. And Danielle, I do believe that we're at a time that our Gen Z, that is, really kind of at the beginning of their career journey, they are craving connection, and we have to leverage that. We have to support that,
Yes.
because they will be the majority of the workforce. And I believe that they are going to shift the dynamic of the disconnection. And we have every ability to do that. So what you're doing is incredible work. And so talk to us a little bit more about it then. Are you doing primarily group work or individual? Tell us a little bit about your business model.
So yeah, I do offer both. The group work is definitely more rewarding. So what I do is I bring a group together and we will workshop. I very much customize it to what that group needs. The most base level is building trust. So most groups really need to work on their trust. And trust doesn't always just mean, do I trust that I'm going to be safe? But there's also other levels of like human safety, which is, feeling safe in your job and your career, feeling safe that if someone else does the work that they, will reciprocate and collaborate with you. And there's different levels of that. So I can work with groups to help build the different levels of what I call the 5 functions of a herd, the things that they need to basically be the most productive group they can be. And so it's all workshopping different exercises. Sometimes it's just getting to know each other better. Sometimes it's just having conversations. Sometimes it's a little bit of self-exploration exercises that then they share. So all of those things can be the work that's done. On a higher level, it can also get into what role everyone plays at the actual job, because sometimes you have a great person, but they're in the wrong role.
Yes.
And part of balancing the herd might be, well, maybe we shift what they're doing and, whether that means changing jobs or just shifting a few responsibilities, because I think everybody has certain jobs and roles and responsibilities that they enjoy, and some of them that they just have to do and they can do. Even if you're good at it, that doesn't mean you enjoy doing it, right?
Yes.
So I think figuring out those things is another part of it as well. I guess I need to go quickly over my human herd model just to give an explanation. There are 5 different roles in a human herd, and it's the guardian, the nurturer, the voyager, which you were, the enforcer, and the prevailer. And you need all of these 5 roles to be filled. And 1 or 2 of them will speak naturally to you as a person. So that's when you take the quiz, you kind of figure out which role speaks more naturally to you. If you are doing a job that requires tasks that are more oriented to another type of role, you're always going to be a little conflicted.
Right.
That's going to be really hard for you, because like if I'm a nurturer and I really care about making connections with the people around me and making sure everyone's happy and content and I don't like conflict, then being in a role where I have to go chase down people for collections or paying their bills, that's not going to be the role that I'm good at or want,
Yes.
So having the job that really connects with the role that you enjoy and the values that are at your core, I think is really important. So that's the kind of stuff I can do with a group.
Okay.
One-on-one, I can work with managers or leaders who, I want to say, I'm going to throw a number out there, but 90% of managers are not really trained how to manage people. They're just good at the thing that they were doing and then got put into a management role. And that is a completely different role. So a lot of what I can do is help managers figure out their team, help managers work through conflicts with an employee, And sometimes that may mean that employee won't stay there forever.
Right.
Um, but you have to work through the steps. A lot of the theory that I build on is that we look at a horse as a project that can be developed and grown and built and trained. We don't always look at people that way,
Yeah.
right? And it's not fair because we're all living beings. So you may get a horse in from a rescue that's skinny and has no muscling and went through a bad experience, so they lost some of their training. But if you put in the time and effort, they can become this beautiful, well-trained horse again. You might have to work through some of that stuff with them. And I thought, well, why don't we do that with our people, right? We
Oh,
need to look at them the same way. Like, you get a person in who had a bad experience at their last job, who might have had some horrible coworkers who treated them badly. You need to look at that person as the same way you look at a horse rescue, like,
yes.
come in here, let me nurture you, build you up, help you become the best version of yourself that maybe the other environment was not able to do.
So fascinating. There's just
That's
like,
what I try to do.
I love this. And so many great points, Danielle, but I do want to reiterate what I'm hearing from you is the importance of our own interest in self-development,
Always.
self-awareness, self-development. Now, do I agree with you 1000% that one of our greatest gaps is in management? Yes, so especially sales management, right? Where we see those promotions happen from the field. We've always had strong academic skills or clinical skills, and we don't have the ability then to add this level of humanity that is required if we're going to lead other people. We are not a boss, we want to be a leader, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I just find this fascinating what you're doing, and I hope that you and I will continue to get to work together. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, we have so much in common in regard to the interest in collaboration and human development and people thriving. That's the bottom line. We're not here just to survive. We are here to thrive. And,
Right.
to do so with some humor and compassion and life experience, right? So,
Yeah.
really incredible. If people want to find out more about you and the consulting business, tell us where to go.
EnsoEquine.com is my website. So it's ENSO equine.com. And that's where they can take the quiz,
Yeah,
figure
there's
out
a free quiz.
yeah, figure out what role they fit into. What's really fun for me and something I would actually love to explore more is couples and relationships and which roles actually match, most easiest, or
Yeah.
which ones have different challenges based on the different roles. But anyway, that's another thing.
Okay.
But yes, ensoequine.com is where I have kind of the basics, the kind of the foundation information about my theory and how I apply it. But
Yeah.
really, when it comes down to it, is, people sign up and then I work very customized with them and their needs.
Yeah.
But I've applied my theory in very different settings with very different groups. And so far it's always held to be useful. So,
Yeah.
um,
Without
it,
question. Yeah, we need more of this. That's the kind of thing that I think that, in our industry, we can tend to be a little bit more antiquated than some of the other, like, let's say, business or technology, Wall Street type businesses that are moving forward with this human capital theory, right? How the
yeah,
importance of investing in your people, the importance of training and development and those kinds of things. Equine oftentimes being a part of agriculture, we might be a little bit behind. And so we
always,
need to
yeah,
advocate and champion, like you and I, to say, listen, we can lay down the judgments and the comparisons and all of these things. Like, let's really focus on collaboration, learning, and understanding. So
yeah.
I just love what you are doing.
Thank you.
Again, I know that as we kind of wrap up and get close on time, people are going to want to find out more about you. So ensoequine.com, I'll make sure that's in the show notes. But this year, Danielle, have been asking all of my guests 2 questions, and I'm really, really excited to hear your answers. But what is one book or podcast that you would recommend to our listeners, and why?
Well, yours, of course, first of all.
Oh, thanks.
But duh, if they're already listening to this, then they know that. I would say, gosh, I don't really have like one, but what I will say is that you need to seek out things that are for self-development and personal growth. So for me, um, one book that I really loved for self-development was Grit by Angela Duckworth. And I also getting more into like the team and um that aspect that kind of kicked off a lot of my own interest in what I built with Enso Equine. Um, was Patrick Lencioni does a lot of good teamwork stuff, and he's really inspired a lot of my work. Of course, mine is definitely more horse and equine related and more animal behavior based, but he has a book that's how to, oh gosh, an ideal team player. That's what it's
Okay.
called. To being an ideal team player. So that's about how to hire the right people. So for equine industry people who ask that question, how do you hire the right people? There's a great book about that by Patrick Lencioni.
Awesome. Great advice. I some of my early guests have heard me talk about Angela Duckworth's book Grit. It was one of my favorite reads of 2023. And I found it fascinating. I don't often read books like that, but I just really I have so many notes in it, and I lots of
Yeah.
underlining, and so yes, I got a lot out of that book as well. And so the second question I have for you is, what is one piece of advice that you have related to life balance that you would give to our listeners in the face specifically of today's hustle culture? We alluded to the disconnection. We didn't talk a lot about the hustle culture. I love your vibe. I feel like like your energy, you're doing a lot of things, but you are managing a really well balanced life. And so what advice do you have for our listeners around that?
That is, I'm glad you said that because I definitely have to work at managing that, and it is purposeful. I keep saying that word purposeful, but it's true. You have to be purposeful about taking care of yourself. And I think that the main piece of advice that I'd give in how to do that is don't quantify your um well, both your work success or your mindfulness based on time. Don't quantify it with hours necessarily, because I think a lot of us get into, especially with the way our work schedules are made, whether it's in a barn and you're working like 12, 16-hour days, or you're just working a 9 to 5 in an office. We really quantify things by hours in our
Yeah,
society. And I think that's completely wrong way to go about it. And in the same way, we kind of quantify rest or mental well-being by hours, right? Like I took a day off. Yeah, but
right.
what did you do during that day? Like,
Oh,
was it actually useful? Because you can actually reset your brain. See, I'm totally like a brain and behavior nerd, so that's what I read for fun. But you can actually retrain your brain and reset your brain in 30 seconds or a minute if you do it purposefully and with the right way and with the right actions. Um, so I think you stop quantifying things by time and hours, but quantify it by quality of what you're doing, whether it's quality at work or quality rest or quality, mental time and whatever you need to do. I would say that's how you keep your balance, because yeah, I have several jobs. I wear very varying hats all the time. So there are times where I work all morning, all night. Plus, I have 2 horses at home that I take care of and train and everything myself. So, like, yes, I'm busy. But I definitely find time to take care of myself mentally, take care of myself physically. And it's not always like there's always an ebb and flow, right?
yes.
There's always busier times and less busy times. That's why you can't really use hours to quantify it, because if you say, I'm going to work out every day for 30 minutes, well, you might not have that 30 minutes sometimes. So it needs to really be more about quality instead of just hours. Because
So
if you
much
could get that,
wisdom.
yeah, that's the thing I've had to learn. And good boundaries. I think good boundaries is something a lot of people
Yes.
don't,
You
they feel
mentioned
guilty
that,
about.
right? And honestly, like I'm here to say too that I love that you say you've learned it, right? We don't come out knowing these things. It
No.
is like I compare it to like veterinary medicine. We practice veterinary medicine. Quite frankly, we're practicing being Jodi. We're practicing being Danielle, right? Like
Yeah.
we're just constantly evolving. And I'm sitting here taking notes that we have to stop measuring life in hours. Wow. That's
Yeah.
profound, especially in the United States of America today. And
Yes, that's how we do everything.
everything.
We're paid
And
by
it
the hour.
resonates really well with me just in my journey over the past year and a half of stepping away from 20 years in corporate America in animal health to taking ownership of my life, my time, and really deciding where and how to spend that
Yeah.
and what does good look like. So, again, quality over quantity, quality of work, quality of rest, quality of mindfulness. I'm just going to school today here with you as Danielle. Professor Danielle is in the house. So much great information for us. And yes, being, a good you mentioned being a good person, you mentioned healthy boundaries, you talked a lot about being purposeful. I love early on you said say yes to everything in your 20s. I want to repeat that one.
Yep.
Paying attention to our instincts. So, Danielle, this is incredible. And thank you. And I hate for us to say, okay, we're going to stop for now. Like maybe, there's always the chance that I'll have to make you come back again and be a guest for another episode. But
I would love that. Yeah. I
I,
love what you're doing and I love the messages that you're latching onto because I'm like, oh yes, someone else needs to be saying it too.
yes, we are singing from the same hymn book today. So thank you so much for joining the Thriving Equine Professional to share your journey, your experience, and your incredible wisdom, Danielle. So we shared your website. Anything else as far as ensoequine.com, they can reach you there. I know any of your other socials or anything that you want to share with our listeners.
I do have Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn. But that's pretty much it. I keep it pretty
Yes.
simple, but
Yeah, me too.
I will. Oh, here's my little pitch. I am in the process of writing a book to explain my theory and all of my stuff. So that will eventually be my answer to which book should you read. That'll be my
Yes. I'll be
so
excited to announce that. So we're in the process. Like, are we, are we going to be published in the next year or two? Where are we?
that would be a fantastic goal for me to set for myself. Yes,
Yeah.
I am
Okay.
definitely still in the drafting stages, but I want to say I'm 1/3 to maybe a halfway through writing.
Okay. So exciting. I love what you are doing, and I can't wait for us to get together and have some coffee or tea together and talk more.
Yeah, we definitely will.
So, Danielle, thank you so much for being a guest today on the show. And listeners, we will see you back here, same time next week. Have an amazing day. Cheers.